many squares. It's crazy.
For the Brady Bunch.
and so female heavy. Yeah, this is interesting.
Oh, wait. Most people would love that.
No, I'm that's the smile. That's the smile. Right. Actually, there are a couple other male here. John Baldino, Ronaldo, good to see you as well. Okay, great. So I'm the co-host here in this section. My name is Juan Betancourt. I'm the CEO of Humantelligence. I'm going to just start with a little, overview of what we do in case you don't know what we do, and then I'm going to introduce the case study speaker. APCO is a company that's using our solution to really attack many of the problems that many of you might be facing, and so we'll kick into that.
I think this might be more clear.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Yes.
I could see people squinting, and that's not a good sign. So I'm going to share screen and jump into this. I should be about 4.5 minutes, and then it'll be 15 minutes with Stephanie, who I'll introduce. Stephanie Hassel, why don't you wave so they know, at least they see who I'm going to introduce to. So Stephanie Hassel she's the head of organizational development and learning and development at APCO. Okay. So the case study is going to be based around how they created a culture of intention, or some people like to say culture by intention, through inclusion, belonging, and diversity of opinion. So what does Humantelligence do, and how did they use this platform to do that? We help companies measure, manage, and recruit for culture and improve performance. Now, this is not an engagement survey, okay? This is truly what allows you to understand if you have diversity of thought in your company, which, by the way, leads to more diverse outputs. As we know at D&I, it's often not about quotas and affirmative action. Those programs have often failed. It's really about changing the culture of your people so that they end up, selecting, interviewing, and eventually promoting people with diverse thoughts. We have lots of customers. I won't go through all of them, but a lot of big enterprise customers for some of you on this call, and I went through the list. It's about a third kind of enterprise-sized companies here on this call, a third that are kind of mid-size, let's say 1,000 to 6,000, and then about a third that are under 1,000 employees. Now, the most powerful study that came out around culture is this one by Professor Don Sol last week or 2 weeks ago. Time flies when you run a small company. A month ago. He proved with data in the Fortune 500 that there is no correlation between the official values, right? The culture that companies put on their t-shirts, on coffee mugs, that all the employees have to memorize for that monthly or weekly pulse survey to be able to say that you know the culture, and everybody can say that they know the culture. There's no correlation between that and actual culture as perceived by and lived by employees. Okay, this is important. It's groundbreaking. Why? Because we all spend so much time having everybody memorize what's on the walls of the company and the booklets you hand out when you onboard people. The reality is, and one of the things our company has shown, is you have lots of cultures in your company. The culture of your marketing team is and should be very different than your finance team. And the culture of Starbucks in Miami, where I live, where it's all Latin customers and Latin employees, very different culture than those people up in Boston for Starbucks in the same role. He even went as far as proving that companies that espouse diversity, being execution-oriented, collaboration is important, and customer-centric, of the Fortune 500, most of those companies have a negative correlation. Even agility, which 80% of companies say that they are agile. And by the way, there's something wrong when 80% of companies all have the same values. Like really, companies actually are quite more different than that. Even that one, only 22 correlation, which is a very weak relationship. And so if it wasn't clear before, drinking the Kool-Aid and saying that we have one culture everywhere, that's not going to solve your problems, and it's not going to drive profitability. Okay. Deloitte has a great definition, and this is what our platform is built off of. We call it BMW. Deloitte calls it all of this, okay? I put the numbers in here. Everything else is their definition. Culture is really the behaviors of your people over time, supported by the shared experiences. It's the motivators or values of the company, the beliefs of the organization. okay? And it's the way things get done, the environment you create, right? And so that's culture. They don't believe that it's command control. So leadership actually is not seen by most scientists as culture. You should, at Procter & Gamble, where I worked for 5 years, they had a mantra that you could get rid of the top 10% of employees and it wouldn't change the culture. Culture is not top down, actually. If you actually look, it's who you have in your company that makes up your company. A lot of people confuse culture with some of the, vision, mission, benefits, engagement surveys, leadership. These are all super important. You need all of these. You need to do engagement surveys, but engagement survey is going to see who is in the ER, who's about to quit, who's miserable. It's not going to get diagnostic at the core of what the problem is and whether they're not happy because of their boss or it's because they're just in the wrong job that's not suited for their behaviors, motivators, and work styles. Everyone has an aspirational culture, but what culture really is your people, their psychology, and the work environment that create or establish, and it is measurable. Everybody has done DISC and predictive index and strength finders. You need to do that for all of your employees. Now, where a lot of companies don't do is they don't do motivators or values because trying to do Hogan or Lominger for 5,000 people is really expensive and takes way too much time, okay? Now, thirdly, you need the environment. All these tools that you know as behavioral tools and motivation or value tools, they're great, but they don't talk about how the environment impacts someone. So you can actually have two people with the same DISC or two people with the same Hogan, each of those, one being miserable, one being happy, doing the same job. How do you explain that? Environment. And so we were lucky where we bought the most advanced tool out there that in 12 minutes, we measure all 28 things across those 3 flavors, BMW, behaviors, motor, work styles. Nobody else can do that in an hour. And as APCO has shown and is going to explain now, you can do a lot when you start to actually have a real pulse, not a survey, but about what people think or if they're happy, temperament, but a real diagnostic view of where you are culturally as an organization, as a division, and as a team or a leader. And so they use our platform, which is sure the assessment to capture data, but that's not the tool. The tool is, and it's accessible everywhere, but the tool is actually used for recruiting and for managing culture. Imagine a tool to help you manage a culture from where you are today to where you have to go, whether you need a remote culture, which our platform and APCO will show you how they do that, or if you want diversity of thought, or if you want to go from a very entrepreneurial startup change environment to a structured, cautious, scalable environment. All of these are culture changes, and there are now tools that allow you to do that. So with no further ado, the star attraction of our presentation, much more aesthetically pleasing than seeing this, is Stephanie Hassel, again, who is APCO's head of organizational development and learning and development. Take it away, Stephanie.
Perfect. Thank you, Juan, for the introduction. Give me 1 second here. Would you actually be able to pull your PowerPoint back up?
Sure.
Sorry,
Sure.
mine just crashed, so. Thank you, I appreciate it. So we've leveraged Humantelligence for 5 main different ways to work on building a culture of intention. The first way that we did it was team building and using it to create diversity of thought within the teams. We've done coach matching, so we used Humantelligence to identify who is a good coach for some coachees in our company, and we've done used it to better collaborate between individuals and teams. It's used to create more belonging, and we've even used their remote scorecard that they created at the beginning of COVID-19 to kind of gauge our ability for remote work and our likability for remote work. So one of the questions you might have is, who is APCO? Juan, if you wouldn't mind, thank you. So this is the big blurb about who APCO is, but the key takeaways here are that we are the leading provider of pricing and retailing content, tools, and services to the entire airline industry. That's global, not just within the United States. We also strive to set standards and technology solutions that are underpinned by our reliable pricing data, and that lies at the foundation of flight shopping. So we are a technology company for the airlines. We create the technology, we update the technology, we push out the technology for the airlines. both for the airlines and for those who are shopping the airlines. And then just a fun fact, we are privately owned by the airlines. The first way that we were able to use Humantelligence to create diversity of thought within groups is that some of APCO's teams have independently used it to create more well-rounded teams with a focus on having more diversity of opinion. They used Humantelligence to leverage the strengths of individuals, and they used it to build up and create more strengths around weaknesses. On the opposite end of that, APCO has also intentionally created groups with similar strengths in order to create specific products. One of our bigger projects was coach matching. As a little bit of background for this one, APCO has traditional organizational hierarchy, but one of our divisions is finishing up right now a transition into becoming a matrix division. In that transition, they, of course, are leaving behind the idea of the traditional manager, and they're opting for a whole division to report to one of the directors. This is the large division, so in order to keep the employees actively pursuing their career development and their career progression, we decided to have high performers become formal peer coaches, and to make assigning the coaches that the directors picked out to their coachees easier, we used Humantelligence. How do we do it? We created a job posting where the coachees were the internal applicants using their talent fit program. We also then had the coaches listed as the managers for the entire program. So we made spreadsheets, we compared the fit scores of the people to their managers or their coachees, and the coachees with the job applicants, and we were able to compile the scores to assist the best matches, to assign the best matches, sorry, and we deployed the matches in mid-July. So once the peer coaches were finished training, and then we've received some feedback that the matches are going really well. I'm excited to see what this is going to look like in a few months also. We've learned that HT's assessment also measures for behavior, work motivators, and work energizers. If you wouldn't mind pushing it forward one slide, please. Thank you. So we socialized the idea of these behaviors, work motivators, and work energizers as an idea to compare personas. So it's created a way for employees to collaborate more easily and give them a better understanding of how their coworkers process and think about things. One example for me is that I used Humantelligence to look at my Chief Human Resource Officer's profile before I went into a meeting with her. And that way I could be sure to present the data that to her in a way that makes sense and is easy for her to synthesize and analyze. I've also used Humantelligence to do this with my manager, my mentor, different teams that I work with regularly. So it's something that's been really helpful for me in order to create programs for people. There's also this new tool that I haven't had a chance to play with yet, but Juan can give you a quick overview of EQ Everywhere and how it'll further lead to collaborative workspaces. And Juan, I think you're muted.
Thank you. So yeah, so we just launched EQ Everywhere, which is a plugin that's free, where if you're in an email and you click somebody's name in an email or in a meeting in calendar, whether it's Gmail or Outlook, for the individual, it'll pop out while you're in your Gmail or Outlook. No need to go to a different platform. Those different business personas, as well as tips on how to communicate. This would then drop down and have 2 or 3 bullet points, tips on how to influence somebody, motivate them, and for things that Stephanie does, someone's learning styles and how they best learn. In the calendar invite, you go and open the calendar invite, and then it'll pop up what the culture is of the meeting. So imagine, you know, even this call, everybody who was in this company, we had a 70-person call. It could have the culture presented as bubbles on, you know, what the culture is of that meeting. In this case, a smaller meeting, it'll show you who your creative people are, your decisive people, deliberate people, etc.
Thanks. I'm actually excited to get to play around with that one when I get a chance. So as far as creating more belonging within APCO, that was actually one of the unforeseen uses. And as the inclusion and belonging lead at APCO, I start recommending this frequently to leverage the knowledge that HT provides to break down barriers for people. How do we do that? We focus on communication and how the other person gives and receives their feedback. The information can help with an employee to approach someone in a crucial conversation, allowing them to be better prepared to respond to the other style of communication, which leads to fewer gaps between individuals and helps create a more personal relationship with the employees. Here, my counterpart Jackie and I are compared using the FIT score on the screen, which tells us how well matched we are to work with the person. You can also see that our personas are in here, which we use to learn how to work more effectively together. While Jackie and I have always done really well working collaboratively, this gave us some tools to play off of one another in a more creative and useful way. And Jackie, being the creative maverick type, works really well with me as the deliberate overthinking researcher, as an example. So I've actually had employees tell me recently that being able to see their coworkers' personas has helped them be more effective as a team and learn how to leverage people's talents in better ways also. And then the final way that APCO has used Humantelligence in the remote workforce these days is using the scorecard that they have. So we leveraged it as an agent of change in creating our culture of intention by using this remote scorecard. Humantelligence launched the remote scorecard as the COVID-19 pandemic began, and it started requiring people to work from home. My team of 3, Emily, Jackie, and I, used the remote scorecard to have a conversation about how we best work remotely, independently and together. So as you can see, Emily and I are not really well suited for remote work, though I think we've acclimated well over the past few months. But using the remote scorecard was a good way to begin the conversation, allowing us to find ways to hold each other accountable and settle into our new daily work norms. And I'm not sure if Juan has anything else to add here, so I'll hand the conversation back to him to kind of close out the case study and answer any questions.
Great. So the only thing that I was texted by my head of marketing, I forgot to mention, that plugin for EQ Everywhere, which is on any browser, allows you to do this not only for Gmail, Outlook, it also allows you to do it for LinkedIn. So if somebody in your company's on LinkedIn, you can actually go to them, kind of like what Crystal Knows does, but ours is based on science. And it's a little bit more expansive what you get for it. You can do it on LinkedIn and then also through Slack. Imagine if any of you have engineers working, the example being Microsoft, an engineer there working with somebody in Costa Rica or in India or in China. Imagine in your Slack pulling up, just click on the name and pulling up tips on how to communicate and influence. So I think that's everything. One last thing I'm going to send in the chat group. I'm going to send in a chat group. We launched that same assessment for high school and college kids if you have kids in high school and college, 13 to 25, it's not a product for sale. It's a do-good benefit we created in COVID. We created an app to help kids apply to college, optimize college, and get a job during or after high school or college based on their psychology and where they best match, given 20 million profiles already in public domain. So it's a great way of everything you'd want your kid at 13 to 25 to optimize that part of journey in life. So I'm going to chat to the group where they can get more information on that. So it's a .io extension.
And I will chat my email in here. So if anybody has questions on how we did leverage some of it, I'm happy to answer that for you.
Great.
Or if there's any, now I think we have a minute or two.
Yeah, and so let's do questions now. I also sent my email, and remember the one for your kids, if you guys have kids in high school or college, ends in .io, not .com, and Stephanie just sent hers. Any questions for Stephanie? Probably most likely.
I must have done a very good job of explaining.
Okay, great. So Mr. Warwick, are you still here? Will you take power back? I'm not sure what the next steps are in terms of. It's amazing, 50 people on this and not one question. Well, while we wait for Mr. Warwick to pull control, somebody ask a question.
I'll just jump in on this one because well, go ahead. No, go for it, Yvette.
I have a question. Thanks so much. So great content, great information, really, really enthused about what you guys just presented. I know you shared your email addresses. Is there a way we can get a copy of the presentation or more, information regarding to what you guys just presented?
Sure. So as far as I understand it, they are recording these sessions, and they should be sending out the recordings to folks.
Okay, I know. Okay, excellent. Thanks so
We'll talk to
much.
Joe. Yeah, both Stephanie and I have no problem sending it. So yeah, we'll get that to everybody. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks.
Other questions?
Just real quick, one I was going to ask, on these types of implementations, were there any things that you, Stephanie, you ran into that you didn't expect, or any kind of like heads up for people who may be treading into this space where, it all sounds great, like, oh, this is how it works. And then you get into it and you're like, and we didn't really think of this, or this was something that we would have had to pivot on. Were there any of those that popped up?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing really was on the back end, there was a more significant time commitment than we realized in doing the actual matching. While I loved doing it, it was a process where we had to put it into a separate spreadsheet to then do a full comparison, because each coach was listed as a manager, but you can only list one manager for each job application. So we transferred it into a spreadsheet to then be able to better compare the holistic view. And it was really interesting, but it did take a little more time than I think we originally had anticipated.
Okay.
And I'll add to that. A lot of our clients, if they're larger organizations, you need executive sponsorship, because a tool like this is transformational, how everyone's now going to interact and collaborate. And if you don't have the CHRO or the CEO or divisional head sending out an email saying this is important, we want you all to do it, the adoption and usage is really low. And even though it's just as amazing of a tool for one company and another, the big difference between 20% usage and 80% is that executive sponsorship and investment.
And I will say for APCO, we actually, I just checked it a minute ago, we have 78% of the staff who've completed it. And I've heard nothing but good things from those who've talked to me about it.